I'm down at the coast because my partner Laura has an exhibition coming up very, very soon, and she's asked me to scout out a location to photograph some of her work. Now, I do whatever I can at this time because when an exhibition is imminent, there are so many moving parts and she needs every little piece of help she can get. And let's face it, why wouldn't you want to come down to the beach? So Laura is a multidisciplinary artist. And what this means is she covers all sorts of art forms, but predominantly she's a performing artist and she works with soft sculptures. Both of these art forms work really well in the natural environment, especially her style of sculpting. And she draws a lot of influence from the sea. And the current exhibition that she's working on is really focused on the sea and the seashore and the tides. And I'm really looking forward to what she's produced. But I found a couple of compositions that might actually work well with Laura in it, wearing her wearable sculptures. And I think these two rocks here work really well. It's so much light around that it's reflecting off the phone and onto the camera and then back into the lens of the phone. But I've got the phone set up next to the camera so you'll be able to at least see kind of where I'm looking. You've got these two rocks here and it's like it's one giant boulder that's been cleaved in two. But they're not just sitting side by side either, they're offset. But what I love is that you've got these two sections and a small gap in between, and they're covered in a completely different texture to the rest of the stone. I don't know if it's going to work with a person or a sculpture in it, but I really like it. So, you know, I'm here, and you can see just up in the top of the frame here, it's hitting the headland off in the distance, and we don't actually want that. So what I'm going to have to do is lift the tripod up a little and kind of angle the legs so that they hold their position. And now between the rocks, I've got this other little rock. And if I can just shift the tripod over just a smidge. There we go, dead center now. Now I've got the separation there between the headland and the boulder, and now I just need to adjust for the light and for the movement. And that requires getting my filters out. Now I'm just gonna have to move you there because the tide is coming in fast and this tripod is in danger of falling over. Just make sure I've got the polariser around the right way. I just push the ISO up so you can see what's going on. Okay, that's my composition. You can see this water is really coming in now. So what I'm going to do is tilt the camera down so we get some of that foreground without relinquishing the sky too much. Okay, now part of Laura's work, which I got a sneak preview on, was mimicking the way seaweed flows in and out with the water. And down to the left here, there are some strands of seaweed. I'm still going to have to move around just a little bit more. And you can see that that water's really coming in fast. But if you have a look down just kind of here, you can see some strands of seaweed flowing out with the water. That's really what I want to capture as well, so it ties in with her artwork. So that really needs to be quite a wide angle, and I still want that as a centerpiece. Now we're f13, so when Laura does sit in the scene, I don't have to worry too much about where that depth of field is. She can sit within a certain range and I know she'll be fine. Especially when, like, she is a performer, so she's going to move around a little bit and she needs to sit within that depth of field. Now I want to try a very long exposure as well, and we'll see if that captures the seaweed or if it's just going to be a mess. But you know, sometimes there's only one way to find out. Now this is the thing about art, and I really wanted to talk to you about art in general, because I recently put up a review on Enhancer Pro, and when I was talking about film emulation, I touched on AI and the role AI has in art. And look, I don't think it's very positive at the moment, but I needed to touch on it because as an artist, we have many, many tools at hand. And one of the tools is AI and various computer programs. So way, way back in my distant past, I worked in the graphic design industry and the print industry particularly, where we would get work from designers come in from all over the place, and then we would run through our software to tidy everything up. And what we were seeing was, with the advent of each new piece of software, with these amazing tools that were part of the software, the designers were using those tools because they were amazing and new, and they did these incredible things. And you know, the 1990s, it wasn't that amazing, but you know, you were getting starbursts, which was the latest fad at that time. And you know, some of the small ads we were getting were just like a circle with a gradient fill from the center to the outside. Or then Adobe Illustrator came out with some mesh tools, so things were starting to move around in that area. And it was so, even at that time, it was so boring because everybody was doing it and they didn't really care about the, you know, what they were trying to achieve with their design. With photography these days, it's just the same. We've got Photoshop with generative fill, we've got all the different AI tools out there to create these artworks. We've got ChatGPT to fill our documentation with clear and concise points that perhaps we're not trained to do. All of those tools are wonderful and they do help everybody achieve their goals. But those sort of AI tools, all they're doing is they're collecting data and then collating it and presenting it in a manner that makes us feel good. It's not making any hard decisions. It's not thinking about what it's spitting out, how that helps the task at hand. And I think it's the same with all the photographic tools that we have at hand now, not just the generative fill, but like in camera. It kind of takes the fun out of it, and it certainly takes the decision making out of the process. And that's why when I'm here and I'm looking at this point, I know the rules of composition. And I know that if I work within those rules of composition, I'm going to get something that looks nice. Does an AI know where those rules can be broken, where they should be broken? Can they look at something and say, well, maybe if I just shifted this across slightly where I should have separation, like in this image, I've got the separation between the boulders. But what if I moved it across so that they were just kissing? That will break one of the hard and fast rules of composition, but it might actually work in this instance. That is where we as human beings can create something that speaks to us rather than working to a set of rules. Okay, I'm going to find another composition, speaking of, and get away from the imminent flooding. So I'm just having a look around for another composition for Laura. One of the objects she has is a wearable piece of art, and to really make that shine, it needs to be in this wide expanse where she is the focus, like she's the only object worth looking at, but with beautiful surroundings nonetheless. And I'm thinking that this rock shelf over here might be just perfect, especially when you can see these concentric lines here. It's almost like some mud has glooped down here and then spread out and out over the years. So I'd love to be able to get her right in the center of that, which looks to be around about here. So if I can get Laura standing here with the waves coming crashing in around her, and maybe with the tide up just that little bit more, that could be absolutely amazing. So let's give that a go. Although first up, have a look at this. How fascinating. I don't know if you can see it very well, but there's these two lines that converge sort of out here. And I'd like to get directly between those. So if I move around to this spot and kind of hope that I can get low enough. So here's one line and here's the other one, and they converge right here, which is where I'd love to see Laura. I've pushed the f-stop out to f18 because I want as much in focus as I can. It's still given me 1/4 of a second, which isn't too bad. It means that when Laura's standing there, as long as she's standing still, she's still going to be in focus and no blurring. But it also means if there's a little bit of wind, we can get some movement from her clothes. And of course the waves behind will just have a small amount of motion. I'm not sure how far to zoom in to get her because she's obviously not there. But that's a good starting point. And what I'm concerned about most is the motion of the waves and the depth of focal distance. And the waves look okay. I may need to yet zoom in even more. So what I thought I might do is, instead of doing a wide shot, why don't I go vertical? And at least then I can zoom in but still have all of these concentric rings coming towards me. So that's better already. And I can have Laura standing kind of here. She'll get the waves in the background and we still get this really beautiful scene in the foreground. In fact, we don't even need all of that. So let's pull that right in. So we're at 70 millimeters now. That's wonderful. So I've now got another scene set up for Laura's approval. And if we pull back just a little bit, we might still get those concentric rings. And in fact, this might be a really good square format. Now my third composition isn't actually going to include any water. Not everything has to include the sea, but I do like what the sea does to the shore. And I'm going to flip you around here. You see these rocks. Now they've obviously come from way up there over time. So all of these rocks have fallen down, they're all at haphazard angles, and the layers that they've got across the stone are just beautiful, and look at all the holes in them. So if I can get Laura in these rocks over here, I can look at her from many different angles. So from this side, it's quite open and spacious, and then we'll come around closer to the shore. I'll just jump over this water, and you can see it's quite open there, and you get the cliff face behind. But then when we come around this side, this is where it gets really interesting. And you can see these rocks behind me here, and they're all jumbled up so tightly together, it looks like there's no room in there at all. But we've already seen that there's big, big gaps. So if we put Laura in the middle of those, it'll look like she's been encroached on by all of these boulders. This could be amazing. I'll just kind of go handheld so you can see my movements. So from this angle, you can get this rock in the foreground and have Laura standing just behind those two rocks just there. And then we'll work our way around the side. But I really do think the most spectacular one is from this angle. Yeah, that's just beautiful. I've just been here, I didn't even notice it, but this line here in the stone, that one I was showing you before, that is incredible. Yeah, that would be a perfect place to sit. All right, let's take some photos. I can try a whole range of different options, and I can pick one that I think is the best. Whereas if I tell AI to do something, I'm asking it to do a particular picture or take out a particular object, it's not going to do it amazingly well, and there's not going to be any imagination in it whatsoever. I mean, how many times would an AI go, oh, what if you instead came from up the top and look down with an incredibly wide angle, where Laura can be here surrounded by these rocks like it's a magic circle, and I'm looking straight down and she can be looking up at me. I need to have that imagination to be able to tell an AI tool that that's what I want. And even then, it's going to mess it up. I mean, I saw a couple of images of Laura that her friend put into an AI, and she came out with 3 hands. She had this hand that was around like it was this way, but her thumb was on this side. So many things that can go wrong with that thing. So what do you think? Is AI the tool that we all need? Is AI going too far? Well, AI isn't going too far. Are we letting AI go too far? Are we relying on it so much that our imagination is disappearing? That our concept of art is overloaded with bad imagery, that we just accept it as reality? Pop it in the comments below. I'm really excited to see what we can achieve when we both put our heads together. And that's the beauty of having another person in the room with you or in the wide open outdoors. We work together and we achieve so much more than what we can on our own with an AI tool that really just collates information for us and gives us advice based on what so many other people have done beforehand. Until then, thank you very much for coming along, and I will see you on the next video. I can't wait.